Hello and welcome back to my channel. Paris-Roubaix is right around the corner, so that means I'll have a look at who are the favorites for this race and why. So this is probably my favorite race of the year. Every year it fascinates me. There's just something special, something magical about this race. And the days before this race I get tense even if I'm not riding, but just as a viewer, it is such an incredible bike race, such an amazing history of this race. I have to say, I grew up watching Bonen win this multiple times. He was the hero of my childhood, and that made me fall in love with the cobblestones, and this race in particular. But yeah, this 2019 edition is 257 kilometers long. We'll have 54.5 kilometers of those on cobblestones in 29 sectors. So this is the most cobbles we'll have in any pro race of the season. Of course, the Tour of Flanders is also a monument. It also has cobblestones, but Paris-Roubaix is a whole nother different story. Just because there are so many cobblestone sectors. Yes, it is mostly flat, but that is also a tricky part because it is really tiring, that many kilometers on cobblestones, and you can't hide. Sometimes there are crosswinds. Speaking of the weather, we will probably have dry conditions. It will be a dusty Paris-Roubaix, while here where I live we have snow right now in mid-April. But yeah, in Belgium it will be sunshine, and it's been a while since we had a rainy Paris-Roubaix. But yeah, we can't change the conditions. We have to take them as they are, just as the riders have to. So, who are the favorites for this year? If we look at the Ronde van Vlaanderen, where Alberto Bettiol won, he won't be at the start line for this race. One of a few riders who did well at the Ronde but won't participate in this race. But his team still sends a strong squad. Education first. They still have Van Marke, Taylor Phinney, who is slowly but surely specializing on riding on cobblestones and had a few decent results last year on cobbles. And there's also Breschel, who in his career finished inside the top 20 on 5 occasions on the two cobbled monuments. So maybe as an outside bet, who knows? Still 3 good riders for that team at the start line. Then the next squad I want to name, probably the team with the most in-depth roster on cobblestones, is of course the Koenig Quickstep, who have this year probably 4 potential winners. I thought it could be even 5, but Bob Jungels opted out of the race. He will not ride Paris-Roubaix because he wants to be in top shape at the Giro d'Italia later on, and that meant he will have a short break after his cobble campaign, then do the Ardennes and head over to Italy. But yeah, maybe in the future he will ride this race. But yeah, the Koenig still have 4 guys in Zdeněk Štýbar, who was my personal favorite for the Ronde, but he got ill and did not perform the way I expected him to. Then we have Gilbert, who already won the Ronde van Vlaanderen and should be considered one of the favorites for Paris-Roubaix as well. Then we have Yves Lampaert, who is the current Belgian national champion, and he has already a few victories on cobblestones, but just not in the monuments. But I think this jersey in the biggest cobblestone race of the season will motivate him to try something. He had a few good results this season, just not being on the top step. And then of course we have Kasper Asgreen, who is riding his first full season as a pro. He started in the spring last season for the Koenig when he transferred to them. When Peter Vakoc was injured and they needed another rider, they signed him. But yeah, this is his first full season as a pro. only 24 years of age. We thought he was mostly a time trial specialist, as he showed last year when they won the team time trial. But yeah, this season he has also produced really great results on cobblestones. He was runner-up behind Bettiol in the Tour of Flanders after reeling in breakaways, after being in the breakaway for 20 to 30 kilometers, and then attacked again and actually finished second. So I don't know how they will use him in Roubaix, because he has the engine, and I think that this race could suit him even better than the Ronde. But yeah, 4 riders who should be amongst the favorites for the Koenig. Once again, a really strong squad, even though the first time in many, many years that they don't have a former champion on their roster. They lost Niki Terpstra, they lost Bonen, and now we have the best result was Steber when he finished second behind Degenkolb in the sprint. That is probably still their best bet if he is healthy, if he is fit. But yeah, all 4 of them could do it. So they have 4 captains and 3 helpers. One of the best teams for this race. The next team who is intriguing is UAE, we talked about before, because they have 2 sprinters in Fernando Gaviria and Alexander Kristoff. Kristoff shows a great form at the moment. He has really great results this spring season once again. We thought a few years ago that he was basically done. He did not perform well anymore, but now it's kind of a resurgence from him, and I kind of like that. He is a really great rider, really fun to watch. But Gaviria also stated, even back in the day in 2015 or 2016, that his favorite race was not the Tour de France or anything like that. No, he actually said his favorite race he wanted to win is Paris-Roubaix. For a Colombian guy who's a sprinter and his favorite race is Paris-Roubaix, that's just a really great story, and I hope he does well. It's the first time that he is riding Paris-Roubaix, because at Quickstep he was never selected for this race because they have such a strong squad, and just because he likes this race does not mean that they can guarantee him a spot or protect him even at that. But also he has shown a great deal of form during the Spring Classics, especially at Gent-Wevelgem, when he basically set up Kristoff for the sprint, because he attacked numerous times and tired the other guys in the peloton out because they had to chase him, and Kristoff could just wait and then outsprint everyone in the final, while most people thought it would be the other way around, that Kristoff would be the guy attacking and trying his luck to go long, and Gaviria would contest a sprint finish. But yeah, Gaviria is, even though he's together with Dylan Groenewegen at the moment probably the fastest sprinter in the world, he is not afraid to attack. He has shown that, for example, like back in 2016 or 17, when he won his Paris Tour, not by sprinting, but attacking with 800 meters, 500 meters to go, and everyone thought, whoa, you can't go that long. You can't sprint for 500-600 meters. And he did. He could have just waited for the sprint, taken a wheel to follow and outsprint them in the last 100 meters or so, but no, he jumped. And this year at Gent-Wevelgem, being in the breakaway. So yeah, Gaviria is a really, really great rider to watch, because he's unusual. Like I said before, it's unusual for Colombians not to be climbers but sprinters. Then he's really good on the track also. He's not afraid to attack. Okay, that is probably very Colombian, except Quintana. But yeah, and then his love for cobblestones. This is just so atypical, and I just love that. Then the next team who have a decent lineup is Sky, who have Luke Rowe, Jenny Moscon, and Ian Stannard. 3 guys who you probably wouldn't put at the top of your favorites list, but again, it's strength in numbers, and if they play their cards well, that could very well mean that they end up with having a guy on the podium in the top 5, and if everything goes right, maybe even the winner. For example, Moscon, I really think that he has the potential to be a future monument winner. And who knows, maybe 2019 is the season where it happens. Then the next team is Trek Segafredo, who also have 2 to 3 guys, because not only Degenkolb, who also had a resurgence of late, but they also have Mats Pedersen, although his form is not as great as it was last year. And then we also have Jasper Stuyven, who had a few great results, or decent results over the past few weeks, where he was in a few coupled classics in the top 20. So he was there or thereabouts. And at least they are good support for Degenkolb, who should be one of the favorites, because if a group of riders comes to the velodrome and not just 1 or 2 riders, then he also is one of the favorites because of his sprint. Like I said before, he has beaten Stieber in a sprint before in this race, and yeah, maybe he can do it again. Who knows? His form is at least not bad. Degenkolb is back at it again. He has to be considered one of the main contenders for this year's Paris-Roubaix. Then I have Direct Energy, and some might wonder because they lost Niki Terpstra last weekend to a concussion and he won't start, but they still have a strong team with Godin, Turgis, and also Adrien Petit. So still 3 solid riders, and for a Continental team or Continental Pro team that only got in with a wild card because of Niki Terpstra, it's really great to see that they can field a strong squad even when their captain is out. And especially Turgis, I expect to see something from him at Roubaix. Not exactly winning, but you never know. Then an interesting team is Bahrain Merida. Bahrain Merida, they have also 2-3 guys, because Matej Mohoric showed a few good results recently, but then they also have Heinrich Hausler, the experienced guy who will have kind of a free role, I think. And then they also have the Spanish talent of Ivan Garcia Cortina, who has shown great promise on cobblestones over the last few seasons. Still a very young rider, and maybe can step into the footsteps of riders like Bettiol, Asgren, and be one of the new generation of cobblestone riders. Because let's not forget, riders like Van Avermaet, or Stieber, or Gilbert, they're not getting any younger. So we have to look out for the next generation who could be dominant in these kind of races for years to come. And maybe that is Ivan Garcia Cortina. But yeah, that is it about the strong teams. Now let's focus on the riders who are probably the single captains of the team. They will have 6 riders to support them. And obviously we have to name Peter Sagan. Even though his form this year is a big question mark, at the beginning I thought, maybe it's coming all together later because he targeted Liège-Bastogne-Liège. But even though that race is also not far away and Sagan's form is still not up to par, he has only 1 victory so far in 2019, and that was in Australia, where the competition was not really amazing, to be honest. He won the sprint against Luis Leon Sanchez and Daryl Impey, so that should give you an indicator how the rest of the competition was. But yeah, Then we also have Van Avermaet. Greg Van Avermaet has the problem that previously Peter Sagan had, because if there is some favorite who attacks, everyone is looking at Van Avermaet to chase it down. But if he does, he will be too tired at the end to sprint. He has the problem that he is probably currently the best rider on cobblestones, but because he is such a great rider in these races, everyone expects him to do all the work. And that means either he lets an attacker slip away, who then gets the victory, or if he chases it down, he also loses in a sprint that ensures after that. So he can only lose except when he attacks at the perfect moment and is just so strong that nobody can follow him. But that is very hard to do. And the last rider who could really do that numerous times was probably Fabian Cancellara, who was also always the top favorite together with Bonen, but he also just had the power to get away from everyone. And Greg Van Avermaet, so far in his career, he has not done that very often. He's really a great rider, but not as great as a Cancellara was. So it's really hard for Van Avermaet to win Paris-Roubaix, even though he is probably the best rider. That is quite a funny statement. But yeah, another single team captain is Nils Pollitt, who has shown great results on cobblestones last year and also this year. He was last year in the top 10 of Paris-Roubaix, this year in the top 5 of the Tour of Flanders, of the Ronde van Vlaanderen. So maybe he is another German hope for cobblestones. They not only have Degenkolb, but also Nils Pollitt for the future. Then you can't forget about Ollie Naesen, the captain of AG Dessert and former Belgian national champion, who has a really great spring campaign, but the big win has also eluded him so far. But I wouldn't count him out. He has the same problem basically as also another rider I would like to mention, Wout van Aert. He, Naesen, and Van Avermaet all have the problem. Now, Van Avermaet has a sprint, but Van Avermaet has the problem that everyone is looking at him, while riders like Ollie Naesen or Wout van Aert, that they will probably lose a sprint against most other favorites, or Sepp van Marke for that instance. Those are riders who have to attack and try to go solo to the finish line because they won't win a sprint finish, except when they're racing against each other. It would be really funny to see a group of Naesen, Wout van Aert, Thierry Benoit, for instance, and riders like that all come together through the velodrome in Roubaix without a sure sprinter. Then who would win that? But yeah, Naesen, great rider on cobblestones or the spring classics in general, but if there is a group, I have a hard time seeing him pulling it off. Then I mentioned just Thierry Benoit, whose form is not bad. It's getting there. He had the problem that he crashed in the early season, and that hampered his chances. He almost missed his title defense at Strade Bianche because he crashed shortly before that race, and after that it was a slow build-up. So that crash, that injury, probably why he has not performed as well as last year, but recently his results were showing upwards, showing a sign of an upward trend, and I wouldn't count him out for Lotto Soudal. Then we have Matteo Trentin. Matteo Trentin, we talked about before on this channel, that he is a rider who likes to attack, especially if there is a group, and he does not rely on his sprint, even though it is decent. Like, he would for sure outsprint guys like Ollie Nelson, he would for sure outsprint guys like Wout van Aert or riders like that, or Gilbert for that instance, Askren, Van Marken, all those riders, he could outsprint them, but he's afraid that he can't outsprint Sagan, that he can't outsprint Van Avermaet, he's afraid that he can't outsprint, I don't know, riders like that. So he tries his luck and attacks in the closing kilometers. And that often means he is gambling for the top result or not even top 10 or barely top 10. So the safe bet for Trentin would be waiting for a sprint finish and maybe win, but probably get a second, third or fourth place. But he tries to go all in, attacks with like 2 kilometers to go, and if they reel him in with 500 meters to go, then obviously he won't finish high up in the sprint. He will finish dead last in that group because he just gave up all his energy in that effort to attack. But I like that. I like to see that he tries, that he gives it his all. And even though he could try his luck in a sprint, he gambles to take it all. And I respect him for that. He has won multiple Grand Tour stages through this way, attacking late and pulling it off, winning from reduced bunch sprints, and at the Vuelta even won regular bunch sprints. But yeah, that should have shown you that he is not a bad sprinter, but his attitude is just, I can't wait for the sprint, I need to try something, I need to do something. And he wants to be in control of his own destiny, and can't blame him for that one. So a great attacking rider from Italy, and maybe he can finally pull it off at Roubaix, because this classic season, even though he was always there, his late attacks never worked out, so his results don't look as good as he actually was on the road. If you just look at the stat sheet, Trentin's classic season was mediocre, even though he was probably one of the better riders. Then on my list I have Arnaud Démare for Groupama FDJ. If he can find another car to hang on, maybe he can do it. If there is a group sprint finish, I think he has a decent shot against riders like Degenkolb, like Sagan, or Van Avermaet for that instance. So if it is a sprint in the velodrome, I wouldn't bet against Démare. I just have a problem seeing him getting there in the front group. But like I said, if he can hang on to a car, maybe it's possible. Yeah. Then we also have Boasson-Hagen, whose results also show an upward trend, and Team Dimension Data need to do something, because they put basically all their eggs in the Cavendish basket, and that did not work out so well for them. Not only Cavendish's fault, because like he had an illness and that's not his fault, but he's also getting older, and I don't think they should resign him because his contract is expiring, because they need riders who can actually win races today. And at the moment, Team Dimension Data is, to be honest, one of the weakest World Tour teams. But at Roubaix, Boasson-Hagen, he's at least a long shot. A few years ago, when he was younger, we all thought he could be the next Cancellara or Bonen, but it did not turn out that way. He took another career path, or his career went differently than a lot of people expected it to, but he's still a decent rider on cobblestones, and I can't rule him totally out for a victory of Roubaix. And then, lastly, I want to mention Andre Greipel, who has also gotten a wildcard invocation with his team. He has, just like Démare, hope for a sprint finish of a reduced group. Maybe he can get there. I don't know, his recent sprint results were not as great, so you could either say that he is just older and weaker than before, or maybe he's just focusing more on his one-day racing career, not his sprinting anymore. And if he lost a little bit of power in the sprint, but gained some endurance for the races on the cobbles, maybe he will be there at the end, and then he should still have a decent sprint in the tank. And maybe we can see the Gorilla take victory in the velodrome. Who knows? But yeah, those are my riders who I think are favorites, or at least riders to watch. And with that, I can't wait. I'm out.